Imagine waking up tomorrow morning, going about your day, and suddenly realizing something genuinely terrifying. You're not entirely in control of your own actions. You probably think every step you take or meal you eat is a conscious, deliberate choice, right? But what if a massive chunk of your life is actually being driven by a silent, hidden autopilot running just beneath the surface? Welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to decode the exact mechanics of how our behaviors are built, map out the neurological architecture of the habit loop, and show you exactly how to take the steering wheel back. Let's get right into it.
So researchers at Duke University found something pretty staggering. Over 40% of the actions you do every single day, they aren't actual decisions. Over 40%. That means almost half of your waking life, from the exact way you tie your shoes to the route you unthinkingly drive to work, is running on pure autopilot. To really wrap our heads around this, let's look at a woman we'll call Sarah. Sarah is a highly successful professional. She feels like she's got it all together, but she has this one issue. Every single afternoon, despite swearing she'll eat healthy, she inexplicably ends up at the office cafeteria devouring a massive chocolate chip cookie.
To figure out what's driving Sarah's autopilot, we literally have to look inside her head, down into the brain's engine room, an area called the basal ganglia. Now, deep inside your skull, way beneath the highly evolved prefrontal cortex that does all your logical thinking, sits this primitive, golf ball-sized lump of tissue. And it is your brain's ultimate storage unit for automatic routines. See, the brain is super greedy for energy, so it's always hunting for ways to save mental effort. It doesn't want to use that high-powered prefrontal cortex if it doesn't have to. So the basal ganglia steps up, takes over repetitive tasks, and lets the rest of your brain power down and take a breather.
The way your basal ganglia pulls off this massive energy savings is through a highly efficient trick called chunking. That's basically just taking a complicated sequence of actions and converting it into one totally effortless routine. Think about when you first learned to drive a car. It was exhausting, right? You're checking mirrors, hyper-focusing on the pedals, staring at the road, but through chunking, your brain packaged all those individual stressful steps into one smooth program called driving. It's a brilliant evolutionary survival mechanism for sure, but it's also exactly how a bad habit, like Sarah's daily cookie, gets totally locked in.
Okay, so every single habit you have, the amazingly productive ones and the incredibly destructive ones, runs on a very simple three-step system: the cue, the routine, and the reward. This loop right here is the fundamental operating system for your invisible autopilot. Once your brain runs through the cycle enough times, it stitches the whole sequence together and hands the keys directly over to the basal ganglia.
Let's break those steps down using Sarah's daily cookie struggle. First up is the cue. That's the automatic trigger telling your brain to switch into autopilot mode. For Sarah, the cue hits at exactly 3 p.m. She gets a little energy dip and feels that familiar wave of afternoon stress at her desk. Step 2 is the routine. This is the actual behavior, whether physical, mental, or emotional. Sarah's routine is getting up, walking to the cafeteria, buying the cookie, and eating it while chatting with coworkers. Finally, step 3 is the reward. This is the payoff. It's how your brain figures out if this cycle is actually worth remembering for the future. For Sarah, the reward isn't really just the sugar. It's a break from her screen and a moment to socialize. Her brain logs this information. It thinks, oh, 3 p.m. stress, the cookie routine fixes that. Boom, the habit loop is born.
But here's the thing. Just knowing the loop exists isn't enough to break it. There is a real villain in this story, the antagonist that makes breaking a bad habit feel literally impossible: neurological craving. This is the chemical alchemy that superglues the loop into your basal ganglia so tightly that you feel like your free will just vanished. It's exactly why Sarah finds her feet walking toward the cafeteria before she's even consciously decided to stand up.
Now look at this. At first, your brain's pleasure centers only spike when you actually get the reward. But over time, as that habit gets deeply ingrained, something kind of sinister happens. Your brain starts to anticipate the reward. The absolute second 3 p.m. hits, Sarah's brain activity shoots up with the expectation of sugar and relief long before she's even taken a single bite. This craving acts just like a giant magnet, dragging her helplessly through the routine. If she tries to just sit at her desk and ignore it, the craving builds into this agonizing tension. She is completely craving the reward even when her body isn't actually hungry.
Honestly, it sounds pretty bleak, doesn't it? Like we're just prisoners to our own brain chemistry. But here is the most empowering truth in all of neuroscience. Habits are not destiny. The science is incredibly clear on this. While habits never truly vanish from the basal ganglia once they're encoded, which, by the way, is exactly why you never forget how to ride a bike, they absolutely can be overwritten and replaced. Sarah isn't doomed to suffer 3 p.m. sugar crashes for the rest of her life. She just needs a better strategy.
Enter your ultimate science-backed weapon against the autopilot, the golden rule of habit change. You see, you cannot just completely extinguish a bad habit. It doesn't work that way. Instead, to actually change a behavior, you have to play by the brain's rules. You have to respect the existing neurological architecture. Basically, you have to hijack the loop instead of trying to destroy it.
And here is exactly how you pull that off. To hack your own habit loop, you keep the original cue, you deliver the exact same reward, but you successfully drop a brand new routine right in the middle. Let's look at Sarah's hacked loop. She finally realizes her actual cue is 3 p.m. fatigue, and her real reward is socializing and taking a break, not the cookie itself. So she keeps the cue. 3 p.m. rolls around, she gets up, but she swaps in a new routine. Instead of heading to the cafeteria, she takes a walk around the block with a coworker. She gets the exact same reward, a break from work and social connection, but she totally avoids the sugar crash. She satisfied the craving by feeding her brain the expected reward, but through a completely transformed action. She literally hacked her own autopilot.
Now, pulling off a successful hack like that is a massive victory, but making it stick, that requires strategy. You need some armor for the future. You see, the part of Sarah's brain that's forcing her to stick to this new, healthy routine, the prefrontal cortex, relies entirely on willpower. And research tells us that willpower isn't an infinite resource. It's a fatigable muscle. Just like your biceps, it gets exhausted as the day goes on. So if Sarah has a highly stressful morning packed with awful meetings, her willpower muscle is going to be completely fried by 3 p.m. And in that weakened state, her basal ganglia is going to aggressively push her right back toward that old, effortless cookie routine. To shield yourself against that inevitable willpower drain, you need something called implementation intentions. This is basically just planning ahead for your absolute worst moments of failure. It's creating a rigid if-then script for when things inevitably go wrong. So Sarah writes down, if I am completely exhausted at 3 p.m. and it's raining so I can't walk outside, then I will go to the break room and make a cup of decaf coffee with my coworker. By preloading that decision, she completely removes the need to use any willpower during a moment of crisis. Her backup plan is already chunked and ready to fire.
And here is where things get truly incredible. When you zoom out, you start to see that conquering just one bad habit often sparks something much, much bigger. We call these keystone habits. They are specific, powerful patterns that, when shifted, trigger a massive chain reaction that can transform your entire life. For Sarah, hacking that 3 p.m. cookie habit meant she didn't crash at 5 p.m. Because she had more energy, she actually started going to the gym after work. Because she worked out, she slept so much better. And because she finally got some good sleep, she woke up way more focused and way less stressed. Fixing just one single routine in the middle of her afternoon rewired the architecture of her entire existence.
Look, we are all running on autopilot. We are all being driven by these invisible cues, routines, and rewards hiding deep inside our basal ganglia. But the moment you finally see the loop, you gain the unprecedented power to rewrite it. You can plan for your moments of weakness, you can seamlessly swap out the routine, and you can spark a chain reaction that changes literally everything. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final thought. Look at your own day. Look at your routines and your cravings. What is your keystone habit? What is that one specific routine that if you finally hacked it today would cascade into a completely transformed tomorrow? Take back the wheel. See you next time.